Just what is it that makes Metallica's riffs so sick? Is it the tone? Or is it the grooves? Is it all the legendary right-hand magic of James Hetfield? If you ask me, the answer is yes. But it's also Metallica's mastery of 4-part riff writing structures. And in today's video, I'm going to show you guys how they work and how Metallica's been using them for decades. Hey there kids, it's your good buddy, Uncle Ben. This might be a hot take, but pound for pound, Metallica has delivered the highest number of sick riffs of any band in metal history. And I think that's because they have mastered 4-part riff writing structures. But from my experience, this is something that a lot of people don't talk about when it comes to writing metal tunes. If you're one of those players that finds your riffs turning into these long, meandering, run-on sentences, this might be exactly the video that you need to start tightening up your writing today. As always, this video is brought to you guys by everybody who supports my channel over on my Patreon page, patreon.com/Ben Eller Guitars. Sign up today for all kinds of bonus goodies like backing tracks, downloadable tabs, bonus lessons, and so much more. This week, everybody who supports my channel, even for just $1 a month, is going to get access to a very special extended and ad-free cut of this video. And you're also going to get the downloadable tabs that I made to go along with all these riffs. So don't delay. Sign up today. If you're playing Metallica riffs, you got to try to capture that legendary crunch that they've always had, which is why I'm playing my Mesa Boogie dual rectifier today, boosted with a Pepers pedals Dirty Tree, which is a brutal combo. Now, one of the most important parts of Metallica's tone has always been the use of active pickups, which is why I'm playing this beautiful Ibanez RG that I got from the fine folks at Sweetwater, which is loaded with the Fishman Fluence Modern pickups. The modern pickups are exactly what you want if you've always wanted that classic Bay Area thrash tone, but just more refined and musical in every way. I think that they sound amazing. Let me know what you think about them in the comment section. Now let's talk riffs. Riffs.
Riffs. Riffs. Riffs.
A lot of us use shorthand descriptors of these kind of structures and call them ABAB or ABAC kind of riffs. But this might be new lingo for some of you guys, especially if you're just getting into playing guitar and writing your own tunes. So what is this lettering system that we're going to be using and what does it mean? Because when I say ABAC, I don't mean this. That's far too cute to be a Metallica riff. I'm going to be using these letters to refer to specific little chunks of a riff. Now these chunks are typically 4 beats long, but as always, there's exceptions to that. Let's talk about the most simple formula that they use, which is an AAAA structure. The main riff of Creeping Death is a perfect example of this. Pretty simple concept. If you write something that kicks ass, play it 4 times in a row. It's going to be pretty sick. With Creeping Death, every one of those units was made up of. There's no variations on it. They don't add in any licks or anything. It's sick enough to stand up on its own. Another example of a sick AAAA riff from Metallica's catalog would be that chugging figure in Disposable Heroes. It's just one figure, played 4 times in a row. If it ain't broke, why f with it? Another formula Metallica uses all the time in their riffs is an ABAB structure. This is where we're going to have an initial idea followed up by a little variation on it, and then you repeat those 2 things in a row. Let's take, for example, the bridge part of Creeping Death. We could call this part A, and this part B. Whenever they cycle through those 2 different sections, it comes out as an ABAB kind of figure. An ABAB riff is a little bit more engaging and interesting for the listener because of the variations in it. The verse riff of Master of Puppets is another perfect example of an ABAB riff. Think of this as being part A. And then the variation with the two slides we can call part B. And Justice for All has a great example of this, where the B section is just a little variation on the A, kind of like what we saw in the verse of Master of Puppets. Here's your A section. And the B section just plays those last two power chords 2 times in a row. You'll see this a lot in Metallica's catalog, where the A section is something that could totally stand on its own, and then the B section is something that's just barely different, usually just adding something on or taking something off. Why then Fishman pick 'em ups gotta sound so angry? Because of riffs. Let's talk about the AAAB structure, which is on a lot of their most popular tunes. So this is obviously a pretty effective formula. As you can probably guess, you play the same thing 3 times in a row, and then the 4th time you add in something different. This kind of serves as a nice little bookend at the end of the riff to let the listener know the riff is ending and it's about to start another lap of it. Main riff of the biggest metal song of all time, Enter Sandman, is a pretty damn good example of this. We have part A, which they play 3 times in a row, and then you have part B, which is something completely different. It's kind of like the little tag that goes at the end of the riff to tell you, it's over. The more I think about it, the more I realize the Black Album is covered in AAAB riffs. Maybe it's like a Bob Rock thing, I don't know. Sad but true, the main riff there is a perfect example of this. We got part A, and then the B section that closes the riff out is something a little bit more simpler. But they used that structure before the Black Album too. The verse riff of Blackened, which I think is one of the most badass riffs in metal history, is a perfect example of an AAAB riff. Part A sounds like this. They play that 3 times before they wrap up with part B. God, that was so badass. A lot of the riffs on Justice get really complicated. I think they probably go through the whole alphabet at some point with some of those. But whenever they focus into some of those classic formulas on that album, like right there in Blackened, you can see how effective it is. It's so bludgeoning and so groovy because your brain can kind of predict the pattern, and by having that little variation for your B section at the end of the riff, it gives a clear delineation of when the riff starts and ends. I think about that B section being your 4th measure as being like perfect punctuation at the end of a musical sentence. Ooh, those Fishman Fluence pick 'em ups sound so mean. The last riff formula we're going to cover today is the ABAC, which is the most complicated one. Now you could guess here we have part A, which is something sick, part B, which is a little variation on it, and then part C usually serves as kind of that musical punctuation we were talking about last time to signify the end of the riff. Naturally, these riffs are a little bit more complicated than some of the ones that we've been talking about, but they can be used to awesome effect when all three parts are super badass. Like in the main riff of Master of Puppets. We got part A, part B, which is kind of like A but more simple at the end, typical of Metallica. Part A again. And then part C, which is something completely different to signify the end of the riff. One of my favorite ABAC riffs is from Eye of the Beholder off of Injustice for All. Now, I've never been sure if I'm playing this one right. Somebody correct me in the comments. Maybe somebody out there knows for sure. I've never really gotten a clear answer on it. But it sounds something like this. Here's your A part. B part sounds like this. Back to the A section. And then the C section is something different and more uglier. Now with the way I've got this all dialed in right now, I'm not even going to try to muster up a clean tone right now, but I do want to play the main riff to Fade to Black. This is a classic example of one. Now we got the A section, the B section, which is based around A, weirdly enough, back to the A section, and then the C section is something you haven't heard yet. So there you go, guys, a look at some of the formulas Metallica has used their entire career to create amazing, brutal, and catchy riffs. But keep in mind, they didn't invent this stuff, and they wouldn't tell you that they did. I'm sure that they learned it from their favorite riff writers like Tony Iommi from Black Sabbath and others. But these are things that bands are still using today. This is part of the reason why bands like Gojira have become so popular. So many of Gojira's riffs are AB riffs all the way through, or ABAC kind of structures. These are things that just work. They're recognizable enough patterns to where our brain can kind of pick them out, and it's kind of gratifying whenever your brain sees a pattern coming and it comes true. I think that kind of goes back to our like caveman wiring, you know, something in that just works for the human brain, I guess. But you can use these structures in your own writing and start tightening up your songs and writing stuff that's just more catchy and memorable right away. If you come up with some cool riffs using these structures, be sure to put them up on the dang old Instagrams and tag me in it. I would love to hear your riffs. Tag me over at Ben Eller Guitars and I'll give them a listen. Thanks so much for watching. Be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell for notifications every time I upload a new slice of fried gold for you guys. If you like this video, you want to help support my channel, and you want to get even more out of it, be sure to check out that Patreon page today over at patreon.com/Ben Eller Guitars. Tons of cool stuff is waiting for you guys over there. I can't wait to see you on the Patreon page. Now I think it's about time to get away from the internet, grab our guitars, and do some riff writing of our own. Get into it. Less clicking, more picking.